Well, today's a special episode for several reasons. The airing of this episode on November the 11th, of course, Remembrance Day, an important day for many reasons. We're going to talk about that. But the other special reason is I finally got this guy in a chair, Ron Realesmith. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, good to see you.
You're a busy guy, I know.
Yeah.
Keeps you got lots on the go, and I'll just do the cliche. Start at the beginning. You're not originally from Sarnia. You're from England.
Correct. Yes. Born in Ipswich, England.
Okay. Never heard of it.
It's a port town that feeds London and the greater part of London.
Okay.
Yeah. My dad drove truck there, and my entire family's from Liverpool. So
okay, nice.
Whenever I go back to visit, we're always visiting Liverpool, and that's where my sister was from as well, my eldest sister. So yeah, we go back to England quite a bit, and yeah, it's good. Good people.
How old were you when you came to Canada?
8 years old.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. So prior to that, you went to school there for just a few years. Mm-hmm. What was that like?
All uniforms.
Yeah. Was it very strict?
Yeah. We lived in like a small borough, like it was a quaint little community. I remember as a kid playing in bomb shelters. They were all around our neighborhood because obviously, Second World War and the air raids, and so because of where we were located, we're right there, one of the closer areas to France, and because it was a port town, obviously that's where a lot of the bombing occurred. So. Right. Right down the road from my house was a bomb shelter. So I just remember that being so vivid to me. That was kind of like our, I remember you kind of swinging like they're monkey bars and you drop into like an underground bunker and it was like really long and like that's where people just, ran to. And that was kind of like, our front yard, we'll say. Yeah. Yeah.
And your mom, what did she do?
My mom worked in a bank. She was did accounts and all that. So she's,
As well as be a mom.
Oh, obviously, yeah.
They both did it together?
Yeah. Different time back then, right? So my mom took time off when we were all younger to be with the kids, and my dad was on the road a lot. Mm-hmm. He, he owned a trucking company, and had two trucks, I believe, and, just the way the economy went, right? It was the early 90s, and all of the work dried up on the shore there in the port town, and so we started thinking about where else, what could we be doing? So we had some family that was in Sarnia.
Oh, okay.
And so we connected with them and came over and, made Sarnia our community. But, as we obviously were immigrants to this country and, it was repeated, like come here, work, didn't work out, turned down, went back, back and forth. It was about a 1.5-year process of being here. I remember being in Brigden. I remember going to school in Brigden for a few days. We were trying to get integrated and then,
It's because of the process.
The process said not at this time. We had to go back. We had to do more paperwork, we had to get in line, So I see a lot of things that are going on right now as far as, the immigration process. I mean, if we're going to jump into politics, but it's, I just remember the concerns that folks are experiencing right now of being denied and having to go back home. And for me, it's like when I think in my head, it's like that is part of the process. Right. Like you don't just come over here one off and then put in some paperwork and then out comes your citizenship on the other end, right? Like it's a grind. And
it's expensive.
Absolutely.
Cost,
but you got to want it.
You got to come here and then go back too. And
I just remember my parents saying they wanted it. They came to Canada and they saw opportunity. Yeah. And so it's always been ingrained into my head at a young age. It's like this, not to sound so cliche, but it's, they talk about the American dream, right? Yeah. And there's the Canadian dream, right? This idea of, work hard, you can prosper. And that's not how it is in a lot of places in the world, Right. And so I'm very cognizant of that. That's like, if you show up and you got a good work ethic and you put in the time, and you're not a terrible human being, then things are going to go your way in life here. That's what we cultivate here in Canada.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think it's still very much alive here. I know, there may be some naysayers that say, the country's gone to hell in a handbasket. Well, yeah, For sure, like there are difficulties.
Said that in the 70s, though, too, right?
Every generation can say that.
No gasoline around, or like there's always some issue going on.
But what are you comparing it to? Like this imaginary country, or like what it actually is?
Yeah. Well, and I think you and I've had many conversations down to shout out to Blackwater Coffee. We've had lots of conversations about that, and one of the things I remember we talked about is like if hearing people whine and complain, it's like, well, if you don't like it here, like you can go somewhere else, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And honestly, you kind of look around the world right now in certain areas, and it's like, wow, we're pretty super blessed.
There's levels to this game. Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I was just there's this phenomenal book that I was just perusing called Bowling for One. And there was a documentary that just came out about it, so I was just trying to connect a bit of it there. But it just talked about how communities fall apart when people stop partaking in their community.
Yeah.
And they were saying that, like in the 70s, like they were able to track it through how many bowling alleys there were. And so there was so much community done in bowling alleys and so many committees, and everybody had a committee that was a part of a bowling alley, you know what I mean? That's kind of like where people met. And so they're saying how as society has progressed and just hitting into the 2000s, this notion that more and more people are interacting less and less with organizations that are bigger than themselves.
Right.
And so
is that due to technology, or is that a choice from the people?
So they try to answer that question, and they try to put the blame on television and saying that people spend more of their time doing TV, but they weren't able to make that quantitative leap,
Yeah.
I mean, they got suggestions.
You could convince me of that, though.
You could convince me as well. Like when I was like reading about it, I was like, well, obviously, but they didn't make that correlating link.
And our phones, of course, right?
Right, but even in 2000, like I remember being in high school in 2003. I knew one guy that had a flip phone. Remember the old school Nokias with a little pull out?
I had a brick phone. Yeah. I actually had a bag phone. So yes, I remember. I'm a little bit older than you.
Yeah, but like even churches, I mean, like and this is not a rag on the churches, but like there's less churches, and churches kind of have this mandate of like serving the community.
Yeah.
And so now when you hear of everything that's going on with like this homelessness, people are looking to the provinces or the federal government or the municipality and saying, you fix this. But like, it's so much bigger than just...
Is it a ground roots thing?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. There's policies that don't help to it. But at the same time, it's like, we all live in this community together. Like, what are we collectively doing?
Yeah.
Like, and I'll give you a great example of like just the Legion. So we are an organization that we have 3 pillars. And it's first and foremost, it's serve veterans, active duty members, RCMP, and their families. So that's like pillar 1. The next pillar is the act of remembrance. So we got Remembrance Day. This is coming on Remembrance Day.
Yeah.
Like that parade, the marching down to the cenotaph, the service.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a thing that the municipality or the province says you shall do. Like, that is an organization such as the Legion saying, we own this.
Yeah.
We are going to make sure that, like the Poppy campaign, for instance.
Yep.
Like, there's no provincial or federal municipal mandate that says you shall go and hand out poppies.
Right.
That's an organization full of volunteers that say this is important for us to get the act of remembrance out. So that's our second pillar. And then the last pillar is to serve the community. And so the service of the community is a big lift because, for instance, you need a building, you need physical infrastructure.
Yep.
You need the ability to raise funds. You have to create that apparatus, and it's not just one person. I'm not just sitting here all day like it's the Wild Wild West. Like, there's a board, there's a committee, there's volunteers of each of those committees have different people.
Structure in place,
right?
Sure.
And then because of that structure and because of those committed individuals, the fruits of the labor are we have a very high functioning building. We are able to give away a lot of money. Like, we just gave.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the Catch the Ace that you recently did, it was tons and tons of money. I know there was a long list.
Yeah.
I think it's important for people to understand. And for those of you watching, if you don't know, Ron is the president of the Sarnia Legion Branch 62. It used to be like, why join the Legion? I didn't fight in a war.
Right.
I'm not a veteran or anything. And it's important for people to understand that well, neither did I. But I'm a member of the Legion. I'm proud of that because I do see what it does for the community. But I don't think a lot of people realize that you can be a member and
Absolutely.
come here and get music on
I certainly didn't know before I got involved. Les Jones approached me. He's first vice president. He's the past president. Retired police officer. That's how he and I got to know each other, and through work. And he approached me and said, "Hey, you don't need to be a veteran to help out here." And then when I came here, it was such a welcoming place. But there is definitely a stigma to it that, like, hey, grandma and grandpa who served in the Second World War, this is where they come and hang out and have a drink. Well, yes, it did used to be that place because there were millions upon millions of veterans out there. But depending on how you look at it, like, it's a good thing or a bad thing. Like, we don't have as many veterans anymore. It's because we're not out fighting wars anymore because we're pursuing more of a peaceful world. At least that's what we're aspiring to.
Hope,
You know what I mean? And so we still have a community of people that respect veterans, respect what we stand for, and they come here and they spend their hard-earned money here. They decide to come here and get the best priced beverages in the city. Plug. But then they also take out their money out of their wallet and they partake in our meat raffles, our 50-50s, our dances, our pool leagues, whatever it is. They're spending their time and their money here, and I don't think it's just random. I think they're being purposeful with their
well,
spend.
and there's a connection to like I'll give a shout out to Moose Lodge, which I'm also a member of, and you align yourself with other organizations. It's not just, hey, we're going to raise all this money and we want to be selfish and raise all this money and give it away to the places in the community. There's other organizations doing some similar things, right? And you align yourself with those people as well, right?
Well, I mean, that's in order for I don't care if you're a business, I don't care if you're an entrepreneur, you can't do it alone. You have to do it with other people. And so if other people have... The right people, right. If other people have similar mission, I think that's about being aligned in your mission. So like our mission statement, one of the pillars, as I touched on, is to serve the community in a positive means. We have the ability to give money, hard-earned cash. And a lot of organizations are in need of cash. And their mission is different. And they serve the community in a different capacity. So like we were just nominated for an OBA for Nonprofit of the Year. And there were phenomenal nonprofits that were mentioned there, some of which we give money to. And it's like, we have a job, and that job is to make sure that those organizations have money so that they can do their job. Right? Like, our job's not to cure homelessness. Our job is to give money to those folks that are engaged in that conversation.
Support,
And we're super proud to be able to do that because of the physical building that we have and operate. It allows us to generate income, which then in turn allows us to make donations.
Yeah, great. Let's shift gears a little bit. We will come back to more about the Legion, but let's talk about your family, so you grew up, you went to high school. Oh, well, high school was good. Where did you go?
I went to St. Clair, which is now Great Lakes.
Yeah, that's where I went to. It was a good school.
Yeah, played basketball, rugby.
Oh yeah, you did. You were the guy
football.
that guy, he's on the morning announcements all the time because you played every sport.
Played every sport, was busy playing sports, and I even got involved in drama.
And
I acted and we did Annie and we did what's the Little Shop of Horrors and
what did you play in Little Shop of Horrors?
I played the dentist. So I got killed. But in the Annie movie, there's one lead. Obviously, it's Daddy Warbucks, and then I played all of the other male roles. So I was in different outfits throughout the entire...
Oh, wow, you were busy. You were multitasking.
So,
cool.
It was a lot of fun.
And then, so then moving on, and you're married now, and you got a young family. When did you meet your wife, Meghan?
I met my wife online, actually. On eharmony.com.
Okay.
I don't know, it's the online world's a totally different animal. But back in my day, it was not what it is. Social media wasn't
swipe
even that
left,
big.
swipe right.
So, I filled out a questionnaire of 150 questions of what you want and 150 questions of who you are. And my wife and I got linked high. She was living in London at the time, and she was doing her PhD in neurobiology. So she's a smart cookie. Well, I mean, she married me, so she can't be,
here we go.
that smart.
I was about to say, well, she can't be that smart. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So
you're next on my list, Meghan.
yeah. So she's an interesting person because she's from Niagara Falls, Welland originally.
Okay.
Goes to London. Her and I meet, and she ends up her research and her counterparts, like her department, their research got purchased by University of Michigan.
Oh.
And so she moved to UMich for her last 2 years of her, her studies, and which was awesome for me because like every other weekend I went to University of Michigan,
right.
and she lived a block from the big house. So like we've gone to games, we've tailgated, like. They do it on a different level over there, so
absolutely.
It was awesome.
Especially when it comes to football.
Yeah, so we had a great experience. She lived in Ann Arbor, and I thoroughly enjoyed visiting and frequent it. Like we like to go back, and then we made a decision that Sarnia was going to be our launching pad for life. And so.
And how many children do you have?
2.
Yeah.
Yeah, 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, and I've got
a 7-year-old. Like I feel like I remember, and I'm just like 7 years already.
It's crazy because I was just going through my pictures the other night, and I was looking at pictures of when Evelyn was first born,
right.
And I'm in here, and people are just holding her, and like it's wild how 7 years have gone by. Like just being involved here, it's been about 8 years, and I remember bringing my newborn in here at the time. It was different.
Cool.
Yeah, it was great.
So you're keeping busy with everything that you do. Of course, you got a job. Where do you work now?
I work for a company called CBRE. We do facility management, and our account is Imperial Oil.
Okay, all right. And before that, you were involved at the city level?
Yeah, I worked at the Sarnia Police Service for 8 years in IT. That's my original background as a computer programmer. Worked for Suncor, flew all over North America for programming different units, and then worked for OLG, Ontario Lottery Games.
Oh, is that right? What did you do there?
IT. I was a Southwestern lead for Southwestern Ontario.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then they closed Hiawatha, and so while I didn't report into there, I just kind of thought, the writing's on the wall here, so I started looking around for work and landed at the Sarnia Police Service, which was a phenomenal opportunity. Really got a firsthand, I got front row seats to
behind the scenes, so to speak.
Yeah, front row seats to how the city operates, and there's a lot of phenomenal. I will say this, the police in the last few years have gotten a bad press, which is super unfortunate. And there are people that act inappropriately and need to be dealt with.
Disciplined, but for sure.
For the overwhelming majority, you've got like competent, well-meaning men and women that show up every day.
Well, if you take how many officers there are, say, in Canada, and then the percentage of troublemakers, if you will, like it's.
I will say this though too, and I will put this back on the citizens too. It's like, you have to recognize that there are some undesirables in this community as well.
For sure.
And you meet a lot of like people that are kumbaya and let's all everyone get along. But like when that person's trying to break into your house, right? Like good intentions and rainbows are not going to be.
If we could solve everything with a hug, then that'd be great.
Exactly.
But that's not. Yeah, no, I get it.
Right?
And while we do, I talk about the Beatles got it right. All you need is love. That's a big piece of it. But
but until we get there,
there's a real there's a realistic side to it all as well. You must, I guess, certainly a clean bill of record. I mean, you're talking like OLG, I'm sure that would be high security clearance, and then Sarnia Police, and then because you're privy to a lot of sensitive information.
Absolutely.
And the Sarnia Police, and I don't know what they are, but like technologies that people probably don't even realize. I think Sarnia Police gets a bad rap sometimes in the sense of, well, it's just little Sarnia Police.
Right.
But they're really they're on top of things, I think.
Yeah, the thing I credit the police I'll say the local police service that we have here is knowing the community. Yeah. And we still very much are a community of I know so-and-so because my cousin played Little League with X.
Yeah.
Let me go talk to him, And like, there's still a lot of that goes on.
Is there? Yeah.
Absolutely. Really, like, that's the crux of it. Like, you are serving the community, and the folks that show up there every day, they got that in their back of their head, and you take those veteran officers, like take Les Jones, like he was a police officer for 30 years.
Yeah. Right?
He's been on a lot of calls, good and bad, but you show up, you deal with the thing, and I can't go out in public with that guy and someone not shake his hand and say thank you, you're a great guy, because he is, like, he's a phenomenal human being.
I remember him as a young, like in my 20s, we used to drive around in our cars all night with our CB radios and and I remember less. But he's probably another one I should have here on the show too, because he's done so much in our community.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? But also, like, he's hired to protect others, and guess what? Sometimes when you're protecting others, there's somebody on the other side that's the perpetrator, and they don't have very good things to say about you. You know what I mean? And that's an unfortunate thing. And then with the world of social media that we live on, they just got no problem going on. And,
well, and I mean, the officer that gives you the speeding ticket because you were speeding.
Right. They're the worst in the world.
Could be that. Right. Could be the same one that saves you too.
Right? That saves you when you flip your car over from speeding.
Right. Well, right. Like, I mean, that's interesting.
I got nothing but respect for everyone that works at the service.
Yeah.
There you go.
But I go back to, like, you must have a clean bill of record to have all that security clearance and stuff. And I'm with the OLG. You would see technologies too.
OLG was like the second heaviest regulated entity in Ontario, minus the nuclear power plants.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah.
So like every single room we went into, you're dealing with millions of dollars, right? So every room you went into, you had to get permission to be in every room. And then obviously, like, I was working with those people to make sure all those systems were working. Yeah. So there was a lot of.
So you weren't working when they got hacked. You were already.
No, I wasn't. No,
so that wasn't you.
Yeah, no, I know. I moved on. That's for sure. Thank goodness.
You remember that though, right? Did you have any thoughts when you first heard that?
Well, so there's two different things. I mean, like, their computer systems did get hacked. Yeah. But it wasn't like they were. And I mean, I don't know enough about it, but from what I understand, it's more so about, like, their internal files was going on. It wasn't like somebody was like, it was a heist that was going on where digital currency was being stolen or anything of that nature. It was just like.
But then, like, the hospital had the same.
Yeah, the hospital had the same thing. It is a growing concern, absolutely. And I think, I remember I was at the city when it happened, and not to that extent, obviously. Like, there were some good security protocols in place that prevented things from going further. But it's such a double-edged sword, because on one thing, as an IT person, it's your worst case scenario. Right. But on the second side of it is, the minute that it happens to someone else, you take that information and you run to your administrators, the people holding the purse strings, and you scream at them saying, "We're next." And so you hate to see other people go through it, but what it does is it snaps your administrators, or
try to learn from it,
or I will say to this, like, to your counselor, like, it snaps them into the importance of, this is where we need to be spending and focusing our money. And so in some regard, those hacks have been a blessing to those that haven't been exploited. And so, because without those hacks, the severity is not there.
And it's just ongoing. It's like, I always thought of it as, like, originally the radar detector. The officers have a radar detector, and then somebody, likely the guy that invented the radar detector for the officers, invented the radar detector.
Right.
And then they have radar detectors, and then they have radar.
But that is technology. The minute a new piece of tech is made, there's exploitation of tech, or somebody takes that piece and says, "How can I use this for nefarious reasons?" Right. And then go from there. The problem that we run into now is, I won't say a country, but, like, let's say X country. Okay. It's weaponized, where X country can bring a hospital in another country to their knees and I don't know, and I don't think this is the case, but people need to wake up to the idea that, like, how many people die or are injured or not just inconvenienced, but like a process broke down that did not allow for someone to respond adequately or whatever it is, and that person died. Is that not a casualty, like, as far as like wars go? Do you know what I'm saying? Like imagine a country.
It's a different kind of war, I think.
Right. Imagine a country showed up here and on a boat, physical people, and they got whatever strapped on their arm, and they got a gun and they're shooting people in the streets.
Right.
A declaration of war would occur.
Yes.
Right.
100%.
But now we're living in a digital realm where
we've
we're
seen that
so
happen in other countries.
Right.
Yeah.
Where we're connected to people, and now you've got these people that are coming up and they're attacking your infrastructure and they're attacking your way of life. And now, for the most part, like, let's take the hospital thing. Like, people were inconvenienced.
Yeah.
But like, also, like, you know, surgeries that needed to happen couldn't occur, or whatever it was. Like.
Right.
Like, what's the ripple effect of that?
Going in for heart surgery. Nope, not today.
Right, because we got hacked. And then that person drops dead in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? It's same with the police service. Imagine the police service gets hacked, and like, now your ability to respond to 911 calls is diminished. And you call 911 because someone's trying to break in your house. And if you would have got there 3 minutes earlier, same with fire, same with ambulance. Right? So like, our infrastructure is being attacked, and it's not just because we think someone's living in their parents' basement.
Where's artificial intelligence in all of this? Do you have? And I'm curious your opinion. I don't have a problem with artificial intelligence.
Well, it goes.
It can be a weapon. For
it goes right back to what I just said, like, about how
it's used.
New piece of technology comes out, somebody exploits it, regulation comes on top.
I use it every day.
Yeah, so do I. I use it all the time. I think it's a great tool. I don't think we've figured out just how much of a disruptor it's been. Everyone's saying how much of a disruptor it's going to be, but until the rubber hits the road, I don't know.
Do you believe? And I'm not sure if it was Harvard or I forget the gentleman's name, but there was a quote out there about artificial intelligence. It says, artificial intelligence is not going to take your job. The person who learns to use artificial intelligence may take your job. What's your thoughts on that statement?
Well, I mean, like, if you follow the problem with AI is that it's so big in scale, and so, you know, like, you could say that argument, like, oh, I used to hire 100 people to dig ditches for me, and then one operator learned how to operate a backhoe. A backhoe came into existence,
right? And
then the one person that learned how to operate it got rid of all those 99 people. Do you know
Same as a cell phone, like,
right?
I couldn't, like. I'm using a cell phone right now to record this.
This,
right, you know?
Okay, so this is a prime example. So you and I are sitting here. It's just you and I.
Yeah.
There's no person on the other side of this camera. There's no one hitting cut action. Right. The editing is going to be done by you as opposed to someone else in the studio. Right. Like, other agencies have a lot of that baggage with them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I'm a one-man show.
Right.
I don't need the camera person. I mean, sometimes, even when I do live streams, different things, you might see 5 different cameras all run by one person.
I just think that the difference with AI is that it's on such a grand scale, and it's also taking rid of things that, you know what, I don't know. The
educational system would be a really good example of concern. I think, you know, I know when I taught at the college, it was starting to come in, but then we kind of go like I told my class, I said, I will allow you to use AI for ideas, etc.
Sure.
I will not allow you to use AI to, you know, if I say write a 1,000-word essay on how to, you know, bounce a basketball.
Right.
But how do you detect that? Well, then technology detects it. So we're using the technology in the first place, and now we're using the technology to detect that. You know, the radar detector thing. It just keeps growing and growing and growing.
I think,
but I mean, like autocorrect.
Right.
I mean, that's artificial intelligence.
I think the issue I have with the school system in regards to AI is, are we teaching people how to get tasks done, and like, what's the quickest way to get a task done, or are we teaching people how to learn? And I think, like, so for instance, like, if your students, if you would say, write me an essay on how to ride a basketball, did they go and get a basketball? Did they dribble it? Did they understand, like, well, what sport is this associated to, right? Because it's supposed to be about expanding their horizons. Right. Or do they just go home and go to AI and type, how do I bounce a basketball? Yeah. Well, who's really losing out?
Well, except that, and the teacher, though, has to recognize it. I think, you know, if I know my students well enough, I read that and I go, Ron did not write this because he would never use those words. And then I can ask questions and go like, so what did the ball feel like?
Right.
Like you just said, did they go up and do it?
I'll give you a prime example, and something that's always stuck in my head and has always been an annoyance to me. And Mr. Van Humback, I'm talking to you. My grade 8 science class, we had to come up with like an experiment.
Okay.
And my experiment was like, who has the better battery? Is it Duracell, Energizer, or No Name?
Okay.
So I had these flashlights. So like, I had to prove, okay, I have the exact same 3 flashlights. Right. I set them up in the exact same environment, right? So it's like I was doing the scientific process of showing which flashlight. And then I would go back, and I had a timer, and I would go and check on them throughout the night and during the day. And then I was able to, say, okay, these batteries in this experiment did X. And then I went back and I, triple checked it to verify the original results. And I had a whole report and analyst and all that. But like my display board, my presentation, I didn't go to my parents and say, oh, hey, can you whip me up something that looks really nice? Like I'm cutting my own things out. Like it looked like a grade 8 student paper mache kind of deal. But like the data was good. And I remember I got an A and I was like super proud about it. I got 81%. Wow. And then the guy next to me did a study on dreams. Oh. And it was a total farce job, and it was like, wait, what are you doing? You can't do an experiment on dreams. I remember we were all laughing at
to his head, and
yeah, like it was more like the theory of whatever, but like it looked really nice, and and he's like, oh yeah, I was working with my mom. We worked on it all weekend. We got it all done. And his and I's were next to each other. And you looked at his, it looked like the Taj Mahal, and mine looked like a bombed out.
Right. What did he get?
He got the same mark.
Yeah, okay. That must have really annoyed you, right?
So I just remember talking about it and we were laughing about it. And I said, like, I got more out of my experiment though, because like I put the legwork in. I did what I needed to do. It wasn't just about the grade. It was actually about like understanding the research and doing all that. So like when I apply that to thinking, it's like AI is a great thing. If you're learning the thing that you're applying it to, or you fully comprehend it.
Well, like now you can set those flashlights up, set the camera up, and do a time lapse, and then go back and check the video
Exactly.
later. Right? Yeah,
there's a great
so it's involved.
Yeah.
But in the business side of things, though, Ron, I mean that's the bottom line is the bottom line. So if you can be more efficient with less people that you have to pay. People don't like to hear that.
It's the truth,
but that's the bottom line, right? I remember, slot attendants I've known at the casino for years, and I remember when they first brought in, ticket out, right? Yeah. And they were like, oh, never do that again. They'll keep doing that as long as they can provide the same value of service. Because honestly, if I win $1,000 or more, I don't really care how I get paid. Just give me my money. Yeah. Right at the end of the day. So that's why I say I think people, they have to learn to adapt to use the AI, et cetera. Otherwise,
adapt or die.
You will be in trouble.
Yeah, you'll be left. Well, I mean, like, here's a prime example. So, like, we use a terminal service now. When I first got involved, it was, oh, you want a beer? Beer button. Oh, you want liquor? Liquor button. Yeah. Now the people
on the cash register from 1962.
Right. Exactly. But you know what? It was simple. It was efficient and it worked. Yeah. And it did, so the task that needed to be completed was I have to track how many beers I sold, right? And that's fine because it's like, hey, I sold 100 beers at $5 a pop. There should be $500 in the till. Right. This simple calculator allowed me to get to that. Well, if that person is doing maybe 3 or 4 more button pushes and they select the right brand, right? And do you know what I'm saying? Like, so they go into the category, they select the right brand.
We sold this many Bud Lights as opposed to this many Coors Lights.
Right. So I've incorporated technology. It's more inconvenient than the original piece, but the data that I'm able to pull from that is, like, well, how many Bud Lights did I sell? How many Coors Lights did I sell? When did I sell them? Right? What event did I sell it at? And then you take that trending and then you ask yourself, that event that I did, a lot of people walked in the door, but were they buying beverages? Were they here socially? Yeah. And so like now I can even like trend particular events. And when you got to ask yourself, like, what's your goal? Is it to sell as much product as you can, or is it to provide an experience?
And you can pull it all up on your phone while you're not even here and go, what's going on?
We do that every night. Like many a time before I'm about to go to bed, I'm like, oh, let me just log in quick and see how the store did tonight. And I check in and I'm like, oh, good night. Yeah. And then in my head I go, okay, we're offering a value to the customer and to the community. And when we're adding a value to the community, we make money for this building, which allows us to operate, which allows us to support the community, right? And
if you all because do that we more efficiently,
all because we all because we just brought in a piece of technology and learned how to utilize it properly. So there's a great example of using tech.
No, that's a good example. I imagine I'm sitting here listening to you talk and learning a lot, and I think to myself, I wonder what the conversations are like at the dinner table at home with you and Meghan, because she's pretty smart too.
Yeah, Meghan.
So do you have these conversations regularly?
Meghan is way smarter than I am. I talk to her all the time about...
Most would believe that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And, but she thinks about things at even a higher level. Like in the tech side, I'm there all day. Okay. Like I think about the bottom line.
Is she good with a computer?
Oh yeah, she's phenomenal.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, phenomenal. And she's got an analytical reresearch mind. So so, but Meghan thinks about things at such a higher level. I don't know how to. It's almost I'm like, okay, how many people can we get in here?
Right.
But Meghan's thinking about the bigger thing of how does that positively or negatively impact the community?
Right.
What are you missing? What's that piece that's missing? Yeah. She's much more in tune with that.
More analytical?
Yeah. And bigger picture and
okay, we're putting this many people in, now we need to build a bigger building?
No, it's just, I don't know. I don't know how to quantify it.
Yeah, okay.
But it's
That's because she's smarter than you. You don't know how to do it.
Well, so Meghan works at the college and works in the research department, and they're always thinking of new ideas and connections on how can these people work collaboratively together on some type of research project that's going to embetter the community as a whole.
Yeah.
Where my focus is how can the Legion generate more revenue so that we can accomplish our pillars? She's thinking about that on a grander scale.
Yeah, right, gotcha.
And how does an entire community function?
Right, and she is, speaking of community, she's very involved in the community as well. She's part of Rebound. Right?
So she's the president of Rebound, has been for going on 3 years.
Yeah, and I just saw her recently, they had their 40th
Their 40th,
year,
Yeah, and just well put together, right? That speech that she gave, she just whips that up.
Right.
Sits down, off she goes. You know what I mean? And
I couldn't do that. I'm more of a wing it guy.
As am I.
And we're winging this.
And she knows when I'm winging it, man.
Right, She's winging it. There's winging it and faking it. They're similar but different at the same time.
I agree. No, so she's all... I think that's a big thing for her is that she's always prepared.
Yeah.
And so if there's something coming up and it's an hour long, and this comes from her background of being a teacher, because she taught over in Port Huron at the college there. And for every hour that she's in front of them, she's spending 3 hours prepping.
Right.
And she approaches that to every meeting, everything. Yeah. She does her homework before the assignment, and I never did. I'm just I'll just figure it out on the day of.
She loves to learn, doesn't she?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. She's definitely in love with the process.
What has she taught you?
Oh man. You know what it is? It's especially that we've got kids, it's the way that she interacts with them. I'm very much, and not to go into stereotypical roles here, but I'm very much okay, bedtime's at 8, it's 8:03, time to go to bed.
Right.
Where Meghan will be hey, we're coming up on bedtime, so let's get that snack ready. Let's
get there now.
Right, let's wind them down a bit.
Not 8:03.
Let's read the book. Let's, you know what I mean?
She's got a plan.
She's so much more thoughtful about. Yeah. I'll give you a prime example. Tonight is pre-Halloween, so Halloween's a big deal in our house.
Right.
And so we're going to go to the mall tonight, and we're going to do that. Well, Megan's been talking with my daughter about what her costume's going to be, and they've been designing and thinking about it. Whereas I'm on Wednesday night, they have to have a costume in place. Do you have a costume? Yeah, you know? Yeah. And so it's hey, I have to be home at 5:30. Whereas Megan's done all the thinking of the back work, and do you know what I mean? That goes into it. But introducing age-appropriate movies and TV shows that are related to Halloween with a learning component. You know, Do you know what I mean?
I totally see it. Well,
Yeah.
actually, honestly, when I saw her at Rebound, she had the children there with her as well. Which, I thought that was interesting in a positive way. I thought, well, here she is to do a presentation, it's kind of official and all that sort of stuff. And there's still the kids.
Yeah. Meghan and I are...
And then when she went up to speak, like the kids, they were just...
Yeah, they were just
There's
chill.
mom doing her
Yeah,
thing, and
yeah,
we're here to help kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And I saw her walking around with them, and the way she spoke to them in her voice was like, no, we're not going into that room. And it wasn't just, we're not going into that room. It was like, we're not going into that room because there are people in there doing whatever she did. Right?
Yes.
That's just a simple example.
100%. Like that example times 1,000.
So she's the boss.
Oh yeah. Like
just thought I'd put that out.
Just like it's, you know what? I know it's a boss in a different way. Like she's the, like I'm the head of the household. Like I'm the.
There's a boss and there's a leader.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's like, agreed. And she I will ensure that the house is safe and that there's a structure to it. Meghan will make it into a home.
Right.
And brings that character and that thoughtfulness. And I mean, it takes me back to when we first started dating. Like, I had 3 of my buddies living with me. Bought this house, like this rickety old house in downtown Sarnia, and she shows up and there's 6 couches and a treadmill in the living room.
Right.
And she's like, "Why 6 couches?" I'm like, "Well, like when the guys come, people need to sleep on the couch." You know what I mean?
Right.
We had a hard night down at the bars here.
Right.
Need someone to crash, and that was kind of like my thinking. And and then she came along and made it into a home. You know what I mean? So it's
the woman's touch.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd be living in a cardboard box with high-speed internet if I had it my way. So.
Right. And the kids that have video games 24 hours a day. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears again, and I know this can be a tough one. Current issues that are happening in our city. You mentioned homelessness, and you and I talked extensively about this. And I know this can be an elephant in the room or whatever, but how are we doing with this situation?
I think we're doing about as well as all the other communities are, which is to say we're not doing very well at all.
Right, yeah.
And I was just in Kelowna, BC last weekend.
Okay.
And it's an epidemic there as well. And you think to yourself...
Is it an epidemic here, right, in Sarnia?
I
mean, I know, well, that's a bad word for epidemic. It's larger scale,
it's large.
Are we getting there?
Yeah.
Could this become the next pandemic?
No.
No?
I think, no. Yeah, once again, I think we're using the wrong words. I think there's so many layers to this.
Yep.
But regardless of what those layers are, you still have to address the issues that you're faced with. You know what I mean? Like you think about the safety of the community at large, and I know people don't want to hear this, but I've been involved in municipalities. I know how the money works, and properly how each municipal, provincial, federal body operates and what they're responsible for. And so the city is an impossible task because they don't have the tools that they need to fix a problem that is in their community.
Right.
And so the people that live in their community look to their government for solutions, and they look to their elected officials to solve problems. But I gotta get, unfortunately for our council that's on there, really, think about what they're elected to do. They're elected to represent us at council meetings, and that essentially is let's get right down to the brass tacks of what they are paid to do. Right? What are we talking? Maybe 30 grand a year or whatever it is?
Maybe
nominal stipend.
Whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Their job is to sit down and read a packet that the city provides to them and says, this is what we are planning on doing, short-term, long-term.
It's a lot of reading.
400, 500, 600 pages.
Yeah.
And I have been responsible for putting...
I wouldn't read it all.
Right. I've been responsible for putting the information in there. A lot of it's boring, a lot of it's whatever, but their job is to read it, and then their job is to vote on it. And those councillors that want to go the extra step and engage with citizens, that is stuff that they do on their free time.
Right.
That is stuff that they do because they are passionate about it. And I got I got a lot of
like showing up at a public forum would be
Absolutely.
their own choice, not a have to.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Now, some of them can say, well, I want to get reelected, I have aspirations, and that's fine.
Sure.
But like, they're not getting paid to show up to those things. That's not in their job description.
No.
And so when they're getting those emails and they're getting those phone calls, like, and once again, I know citizens don't want to hear this.
You work for me 24 hours
Right.
a day.
And I hate when people say that I'm a taxpayer, and like, yeah, you are a taxpayer. but like that doesn't mean that they're on your auto call for, whatever.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, some of them, like, they're all are in for that. But like, there's different levels and scales. But actually, like, what they actually get paid to do is to read that packet, vote on those things, and go home.
Yep.
And so they're...
And some do that.
100%. And I don't have any issues because...
No, and I'm okay with that.
Right, because it's like what I'm paying them to do is to go and make sound decisions.
Yeah.
Now, they'll say I need to make sound decisions based on sound advice and that's where the further engagement
Sure.
is.
I need a report and all that stuff.
100%. And so like I love it. I think the people on council that are engaged, but they're being asked to debate on things that are in their community because other pieces of government, other layers, I don't want to say have failed them, but they're overwhelmed with something that none of us are equipped to deal with.
Yeah.
And so, but then it's in every community, right, across the country and in America and elsewhere, you know. So
and, you look at downtown. Like, I mean, I've lived in Sarnia all my life. I went away for one summer, but I knew I was coming back anyway. But I've never left, and I've seen the downtown change so much. And now we're seeing like businesses suffering because of what's going on.
It's not good.
Different. Some have chosen to close.
Sure, they
go,
have. Yeah.
Or we had even the Rebound store was here, and then they've decided like we just can't sustain this.
And a lot of these
And
places.
that's not blaming it all on one thing.
No,
but,
for sure. But like
it
it
has an impact.
Right. I mean, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, right? Like,
I'm with you.
Yeah, it is tough, and like I can appreciate these people that say we got to do more, we got to do this, we got to do it, and it's like I love the idea of it, but at the end of the day, it's doing more with less, and your municipality is in the exact same boat. They're doing more with less, doing more work, less resources to do so.
Yeah.
And this thing is you need a team of people. And this is where it comes back to my original thought on that bowling for one.
Right.
Is this idea of community groups need to be more engaged, more empowered to intervene and help out and do whatever it is. Now, I'll say a terribly taboo thing, but like take churches, for instance. They used to be a lot more engaged.
Yep.
They used to have a lot more access, or they used to be a lot more prominent, or whatever it may be, and they don't anymore. And it's because people attend church less. Those churches now have had to do more with less, and they're scaling back. And the Rotary groups and the Kiwanis groups, and take the Legion. The Legion used to have 2,000 members. Now we're sitting around 550. Like citizens all over have just decided to stay at home.
Yeah. Well, and that being said, I think, if you look at, I remember the church when I was a teenager, we went to St. Andrew's Church right here. And, they'd have a food bank, etc.
Sure.
But I think, I might get shot down for this, but I think the type of homeless person looks different now
Yes.
than it did back in the 80s when I was a teenager, right? So fear of safety, dealing with people, you don't know how to react. We want to hug everybody, but
right.
I don't know how you're going to react to me. So
and that's what I mean, though. But there's been a
right?
diminishing of society.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah.
For 20, 30 years, it's been falling
coming.
off.
Did we not see this coming?
I think there's been warning signs out there
right.
for quite some time, but it's always like, I just need to get through my day. And like, let's be honest, like the cost of living is tremendously higher now.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I wouldn't want to feed 2 kids.
right, your money's got to go a lot further. And like, and I should, like, before anyone comments and says, oh yeah, well, like, must be easy for you to say, like, volunteering, like, like I got to work 3 jobs or I do whatever. It's like, oh, I get it. Like, and that's what I'm saying. People are not doing less in the community because they're apathetic or they're just watching television more. No, it's because they picked up that extra job.
Yeah.
You know, and it's because
Trying to make ends meet.
right, or maybe there's a broken home or whatever it may be, or like whatever the circumstance is. But people are now working more, doing more with less. You know, and so they don't have time when they've got 5 minutes to themselves. They're not thinking, oh, I want to run down to my local X to go help out the other person. Like, who's helping me out? You know?
How do you teach your children? We hear a lot of today's generation is entitled, and it's like, you know what? When I was 15,
I don't think so.
I was entitled.
I think today's generation is dealing with something that they're dealing with issues that we never fathomed.
No, that's right.
And that is stress.
And we can blame it on technology,
right?
Which I'm not a fan of that one, because we, the parent, should be in control of how much screen time you get.
Sure.
And how it gets used, and it comes from the moral and ethics of the parent and that sort of thing, rather than like my boy's 24 and he was 3 before he sat on a computer with the big desktop screen and everything. Now they're born with it in their hand.
Right.
Whose fault is that? That's the parent, isn't it? To say, well,
it's the product.
Because it can be a tool, right?
It's the product of their time. It's once again, it's down to intention.
We had Sony Walkmans, right? Oh my goodness, you're going to take your music with you everywhere.
Right. No, agreed. I don't know. It's such a profound question, you know. Like I feel like if you're gonna have kids, you have to shift your goals and your focus, and you have to have a plan of action before it gets there, you know. And
talk about it with your partner before you decide to have children, because maybe some people shouldn't.
That is a fair comment, but once the kid's here, right?
That's right.
And it's like,
now what?
Yeah, your job is to. I look at it like I have a responsibility now as a father to ensure that my daughters can integrate into society properly and to be a functioning member of society. And now somebody wants to counter that and say, oh, like you're just going to make them into a worker or whatever it is. It's like, okay, well, like this is the world that I live in. These are the rules for which we're playing by. And I want them to be the most optimal of which they can be.
And teach them how to deal with conflict.
Right.
Because it's going to happen.
And to teach them and to not do things for them. I'll give you a prime example. My 3-year-old yesterday, I go to pick her up and I got to put her boots on. And she always says to me, Daddy, help. And I'm always like, I'll help you by putting the boots right here. You need to put them on. And she'll sit and she'll pout and she'll, no. But I'm not doing her any benefits by putting them on for her. My job is to say, hey, these are the boots that you got to put on. You know, and I'm helping her right now by making sure the left and the right one are lined up. Right. And then it's like, hey, you have to put the boots on. And it's like little things like that.
Yeah.
You know, like my daughter, when she gets up in the morning,
Overtime,
my 7-year-old, like when she gets up in the morning, it was just crawl out of bed and you know, whatever, just go play with whatever. But there's things that need to be done. Like you have to be out the door by X amount of time. So now we've got like a chart for her that says, as a 7-year-old, you have responsibilities that you need to do so that you are ready to face the day.
Yeah.
And like these are conversations that we have with her.
Which
like,
is then
you need to be responsible for your own
right.
domain.
It's great, because I think some people grow up and then they get into their 20s and go, oh, I got to go get a job, and like I don't know how to start my day.
Yeah.
I got to you start your day. You know, you get out of bed. Well, yeah, but you got to plant your feet on the floor.
Yeah.
You got to
Make your
wash
bed,
your face, make your bed. Yeah.
So we have a whole there's like 9 things that she has to do every morning.
Nice.
And she go through and make sure that she's doing them all. Now, if she misses 1 or 2, my job's not to come and like crack down on her. You know, it's like, okay, observation that was missed. She's going to bed. Hey, tomorrow when you're getting into it,
Don't forget
you got to do X and X. Yeah, right. It's a conversation, and you are building that over time, and it's repetitive. And as a parent, it's repetition. It's showing up.
Compounded over time.
Yes, absolutely.
Sure. Do you feel we're going to start wrapping things up here? But and I know they're like 7 and 3, but do you feel like you have a good relationship with your children so far?
Yes. The answer is yes. Yeah. Like I love interacting with them.
You can tell.
Right. I love it. Like I bring them to all the functions that I have here. I've really brought them into this, like, you know, the workers that work here and a lot of the volunteers, they all
Part
know
of the
them.
family,
Yeah, they know them on first name basis because this is important to me. And I knew that if I wanted to continue being involved here, I was going to make it a family affair. I was going to have to bring my kids into it. I don't try to separate them from it. You know, when we have events, my kids, like there's like a prominent dinner and everyone's all dressed up. My kids are running around with little Nike sneakers on and a little dress, and you know, they're part of the chaos.
Kids.
You know, bring them into it. You know, and
Awesome.
and people should be doing that more. You know what I mean? Like this is find a place, make it your community, and then bring your life into it. You know?
Yeah. Ron, I wish we had more time. We will have time another time.
We should do this over a scotch and without a camera next time.
Well, maybe. Maybe we already have before.
Fair comment.
I do appreciate your time and everything you do in the community. And thank you, Meghan, as well, for allowing us to talk to Ron today.
Yeah, take care.
Thanks, everybody. As always, click the like and the love button, but click the share button, the most important button, so everyone can enjoy Ron's story. But as always, that's all the time I got for you this week. Have a great week and an even better weekend. We'll see you next time right here on the show. Bye for now. Over before you know it.